Okay, sounds good. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and kick things off here. Thank you everyone for joining us. Just a few quick homework items to take care of first, and we'll go ahead and jump right into our agenda for today. So this is our second community conversation, and we do plan to host these on a regular basis going forward. Ideally at least once a month, just to kind of keep our members engaged and just share what's happening behind the scenes. So just a quick disclaimer, this conversation is taking place on Wednesday, August 12th at 4:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The intended audience is for FPA chapter members, prospective members, and partners. And the opinions shared by those on this call do not reflect that of their employers. Any discussion on investments and financial planning is general in nature and should not be taken as financial advice. So now that we have the fine print officially out of the way, just wanted to kind of share, what our goal is for these calls going forward is really just to kind of help people realize the vision of the FPA going forward, and that is to just be there as, a community that's, helping out those that decide they want to become a part of the profession to the day they retire from it. We want to be there with all the resources to help you along the way. So, and really the goal is just elevating the profession to transform the lives of others through financial planning. So now that we got all the kind of quick items out of the way, I wanted to just kind of draw out the framework for today's call also. So I had a few questions here for Matt today, both kind of more on his background and, the financial planning field itself. And then we'll get into kind of some more fun questions also. I'll fire away a few, and then I'll kind of just stop to see if we have any questions from the audience, and then we'll just kind of carry on from there. So if anytime you have anything to chime in with, feel free to just unmute your line and jump in. So I guess first and foremost, Matt, on a, kind of more of a fun question to lighten the mood before we jump into other questions. I know you're from Nebraska and likely a big, Cornhuskers fan. How do you feel about this Big Ten situation and, college football as we know it today?
Well, that could be polarizing right there. Well, so did you see Scott Frost's comments on the Big Ten situation, Aaron? Or
I know they were talking about trying to play outside of conference, but that's looking pretty unrealistic. But I haven't seen too much besides that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I don't have cable right now, and I usually only get cable during the fall, so that way I can have the Big Ten network. And if there's no football, then I don't see any reason to have cable. So okay. I think Coach Frost, his stance on it was pretty good. I thought, in all seriousness, I think he was, his stance is if it's supposed to be about the student athletes, they're probably safer to be on campus where they're going to be tested and stuff than go back to their homes where they're going to be around who knows what. But anyways, yeah, I hope selfishly that there's college football. But if we have to wait another season, that probably doesn't hurt Nebraska. They could use last year as evidence, they were not overly strong. So
it's one more year with Ohio State not winning the Big Ten, right? So I think that's a win for everyone.
Yeah, that's right. That's a win for everyone in the conference.
Yeah, perfect. Well, we'll go ahead and kind of get back into questions that I had for you, Matt. I know we used to work together back at the old Vanguard, as so many have. I want to kind of ask you, first and foremost, what got you into the field, and what financial planning means to you?
Yeah, so my dad's an engineer. I had two uncles that are in the industry, both in Colorado. My uncle just retired. He worked for Ameriprise he bounced around, but he ended his career for like the last 10 or 15 years working for Ameriprise. And then my uncle is still an advisor that works for Raymond James in Colorado Springs. So I always had like a natural attraction to the analytical side of just anything. Mm-hmm. Being the son of an engineer, I really enjoyed the math piece, and really enjoyed interacting with people. So saw the lifestyle that my uncles had, and I thought that seems appealing, like what they do as a career. Mm-hmm. And so I'd studied finance in college with the intention of being an independent financial planner, and I think after my freshman year, or during my freshman year, my uncle, who worked at Ameriprise, said, well, hey, if you want to be a financial planner, like with your own clients, you better learn how to sell. Otherwise you're going to be a hungry financial planner. So during my summers in college, I sold books door to door, and that's how I cut my teeth learning to sell. Yeah, as far as like what financial planning means to me, I mean, I think it kind of means liberation in a lot of ways, for people. I just had a meeting with a client today who is kind of at a crossroads in his career, and he has a tough time, I think, as everyone does, myself included, trying to remove emotions from decisions. And I think in a lot of ways we end up being the translator of their goals into, if you decide to go down this path, here's what that could look like. If you decide to go down this path, here's what that could look like. So, it's really gratifying to be able to help people, show them what their options are, so that they can make intelligent decisions knowing what the facts are.
Definitely. Very cool. Perfect. And what first got you into the FPA? Was that something you joined in college, or was that when you moved out to Scottsdale? What kind of drew you in?
So before then, before we lived in Phoenix, so I grew up in Nebraska, and then my wife and I lived in Kansas City for a year and a half while my wife was in grad school. And during that, she could do her field work wherever. She had 6 months that she had to do field work. So we said, okay, we'll move out to Phoenix. And I thought, well, I know I want to get into finance, but I don't know necessarily what I want to do. So this is like my most proud networking thing of my entire life. I had a friend of a friend of a friend that knew Darren Shabesta, and Darren, I think at the time, was the leader of Next Gen. This was before he was president of FPA of Phoenix. I am totally convinced that there is no single individual that I could have been introduced that would have been more impactful at that point in my life, anywhere in the country, let alone in Phoenix, than Darren. And I've told Darren that before, but hopefully he can watch the recording of this and know that again. Anyway, so I got connected with Darren and Alex Caracito. Alex is like one of my closest friends. And Alex, if you watch this, come back and join us in FPA.
Few plugs here real quick.
And anyway, so I met them. They were both plugged in the FPA, and they said, hey, you should come to meetings and whatever, get to know some people, and make sense of where you want to go with your career. So that was kind of how I got plugged in initially. As you know, Aaron, I worked at Vanguard for the first year that I was down here. I still was involved in like next gen stuff, but just scheduling wise, it was a little more challenging to be involved with FPA as much. But then when I went to the independent channel, then my schedule opened up a little bit to be able to be more involved in FPA. So that's kind of when I got a lot more involved with FPA.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think with more of these virtual events, hopefully, it's easier for everyone to kind of join, even with crazy schedules and everything like that. So I guess kind of getting more into advocacy as far as, the team itself, do you mind kind of sharing what drew you into that part of the FPA as far as a volunteer team leader, and, what the main goals are of the group as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what kind of, drew me into advocacy was, I mean, I have an interest in politics, if, for probably the main reason, just to have a seat at the table, to have a say in what's going on. And, without getting into like a specific goal in advocacy, I think our general goal is to develop the relationship so that we can have a seat at the table, to so that we can have a say at what happens to our industry. And we've worked very targeted on that over the last 3 years to try and develop that, and it's been, I think, just our group as a whole has been able to have some success because we've been dumb enough to ask questions we didn't know the answer to, and then policy advisors and policymakers and whatever would share with us the most efficient ways to do what we were trying to do. So anyway, I'd say our main goal is to try and develop those relationships with policymakers so that when something comes up, that we have a seat at the table. Probably the best example of that was not quite a year ago in December December of 19. A year ago at this time, we met with Senator Sinema's policy advisor, and that was kind of the groundwork to set a meeting with Senator Sinema in December when she was and when she had availability, and that the part of the conversation was around some of the things of the Secure Act, and the expectation for us that was set at that time was that none of those things would be passed, and that was 2 weeks before those things were passed. So we were speaking with somebody that had a seat at the table, and valuing our opinion and intake on those things. It was where she sits on committees is really, really influential. And actually, both of our senators, Martha McSally and Kirsten Sinema, both of them sit on some of the same finance committee. That legislation that directly affects our industry on the federal level goes right in front of their face. So we're from an advocacy standpoint in Arizona, we're pretty spoiled from that standpoint.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And do you feel like it's been easier to maintain the relationship in this kind of virtual world that we live in today? Is it mostly kind of phone calls and emails, or how you maintain that relationship over time with these legislators and advisors as well?
So we had our state advocacy day was before all the COVID stuff, so that was unaffected. But we did have some policy stuff or a Senate bill that we were opposing. So I think it ended up kind of taking back burner to all the COVID stuff. So that part didn't help. But like right now, so like during August, we try to do, we've branded it, sorry, I have branded it. I don't know if FPA has formally branded it, the August Recess Rush. Tried to coin that term, where we try to meet with all of our federal elected officials. So Senator Sinema, Senator McSally, Representative, like for me, it's Representative Stanton, Schweikert, Andy Biggs, and a couple. That's who we've met with in the past, would be those people, except for Senator McSally. So if anyone has an in, connect us, because we have not been able to get connected with her. So anyway, during August, we try to do those meetings. Generally, like last year, we did them all in person. And 2 weeks ago, we did a virtual one with Senator Sinema and her staff. And all of our other ones here are going to be virtual for those meetings. I think in some ways it's made it a little bit easier maybe to get a hold of them, because they're not having we're not having to factor in travel time. We're able to get I think easier commitments from people, because they're not having to factor in driving 30 minutes each way or whatever. And then same thing, if they were coming to meet us the same way. So in some ways, I think it's been better, though. Undoubtedly, just like any virtual meeting, it can sometimes be challenging to read people and whatever else.
Sure. Okay. we'll keep our ears to the streets here as far as, any connections with Martha McSally to get you a seat at the table there. I was joking with Melissa once, church is back in session here. Doug Ducey does go to my church in Scottsdale. So, that's always a good connection as well.
We could leverage that connection, Aaron.
So looking forward to when, post-COVID world, when that all kind of gets back to normal there. But you mentioned Advocacy Day. I wanted you to kind of share some more about that. I know that's been a really popular event for not just advocacy team members, but FPA members across the board. Do you kind of mind sharing the most recent one and, the success that you've kind of had with people showing up and the impact that's had on their view of advocacy?
Yeah. So we try to do it. We try to do once a year, go down to the Capitol and, go around to our state elected officials and shake hands and share with them kind of our stance, a little bit about the FPA, and then, any policy issues that we have an opinion on. So the very first Advocacy Day that I participated in, and I don't know that the way that I felt, and I don't know that that somebody just coming in for the first time would necessarily feel any different right now either. But a lot of times it felt like we're going in and we're saying, we're fiduciaries. If we ever have an opinion, you should listen to us. And it's like, and I wasn't, after the fact, I'm like looking back at the way that we approach things. And again, this was from a novice looking in. We're meeting with them. We were meeting with them typically in February. This is in the heat of session. They've got thousands of different bills that are flying in front of their face. And we're coming in and saying, we're fiduciaries. If we ever have an opinion, you should listen to us. And I had to imagine that they're kind of chomping at the bit. So what policy positions do you have an opinion on? We're like, we don't right now, but we're just saying in the future, if we do, you might want to listen to us. We're like, we're trustworthy people. And so I was, the year following that year, we did an advocacy workshop, which was super helpful because we did that in the fall. We did it in October, which we'll do, again, we'll do it this September, a month from now, as a part of the, sorry, Melissa, help me. The prequel.
It's the prequel, the chapter showcase.
The chapter showcase prequel. So we'll do it as a part of that. And the thing that was really helpful about that is we were able to meet with some of these policymakers, and staff members were some of the most helpful, because I think all, like myself included, our knowledge of like how a bill becomes a law was Schoolhouse Rock. Like that was our level of intellect. And I honestly think that that's most people's viewpoint generally was kind of that. So we the way we kind of tried to brand it a little was like, how does a bill actually become a law, right? Like we kind of know conceptually the Schoolhouse Rock thing, but when we started asking questions, Senator J.D. Mesnard was super helpful, and then Senator Kimberly Yee, at the time Treasurer Yee now, was very helpful in speaking to some of the politics of it, and speaking to like how something goes from an idea to legislation and then votes and what, different, just the whole process. And because it wasn't in the time crunch of, I've got 5,000 bills I need to vote on this session, they had time to actually, and were willing to talk to us. And that helped to build our relationship with those staff members and policymakers, such that when we met with them in the advocacy days following, they knew that we were invested to actually make a difference and stand up for what our organization does, and that our organization's strong and has a good stance. So I think they understood. I think we had a more valued opinion, I think, moving forward on that. And then we knew there was a couple FPA federal issues FPA national issues that would be legislated on the state levels. And we thought, why are we not, like, there was model bill legislation. One was the Senate bill, I think it was 1443, which was protecting vulnerable adults. So we had the model bill legislation. So then we felt comfortable we didn't feel comfortable, but we felt not uncomfortable enough to get shot down, and we didn't get shot down. So we brought that up as model legislation, and JD Mesner sponsored the bill for us and passed through the House and Senate. So it was we had quick success quick success after a year and a half. Yeah.
That's politics, right? That's quick.
Cool. Hey,
Perfect.
Aaron,
Well,
I don't know if you've got a room for others to ask questions yet, but I'm guessing as I'm watching faces and listening, we've given them a ton of data here to chew on.
No, I'm going to open it up to the floor. I'll let Matt take a sip of water. I think he just got a swig down here because I know I've been just firing rapid fire here. So we'll open up the floor here for any further questions to kind of piggyback off of what we've asked already.
Yeah, so you can unmute yourselves, I think. And if you have questions for Matt about his background, how he got in the field, why he likes Nebraska and football, or what we're going to do with next year's advocacy or the workshop, I mean, it's all fair game. He's here for you. So whatever your curiosities are.
Not engaging.
Well, Melissa, it's obvious why Matt likes Nebraska football. I mean, we're the best football team. I mean, just despite our record, we're still the best football team.
I knew Brad would agree with me on that.
We at least have the best fans. We can unquestionably say that. But Matt, I was wondering, so like, what is there anything like specific that FBA is like trying to push from like an advocacy perspective, like any policies that people like in the chapter like are really passionate about that they're trying to talk to like these senators about, or is it just kind of more of like as bills are kind of being pushed through or developed, you guys kind of come and like give your opinion on certain things?
Yeah. So on the federal level, so like when we had our meeting with Senator Sinema 2 weeks ago, there's like 5 or 6 different policy things that are pertinent right now on the federal level. Some of it, like one around COVID right now, is there's like pending federal legislation that would allow for 529 funds to be used for credentials, like a CFP or something else, if you lost your job due to COVID. So some of these things are trying to understand, if they're partisan issues, or if there would be, if there would be opposition from someone like that specific one is bipartisan support generally. So just kind of making them aware that we think it's a good idea. There's one that is again, that would kind of be semi-COVID related, is with the Tax Cuts and Job Act that occurred for 2018, that got rid of deduction of investment advice. So we're trying to, I wouldn't say it this way to our elected officials, but trying to get that into one of the stimulus packages here as it relates to COVID. But we just have to find like a legislator that wants to support that wants to kind of champion that for us. Yeah, so those would be that one. And then the other one that would be kind of big is opposition to transaction tax. So no secret that we run a deficit federally. So how do you mitigate that? You increase revenue or you decrease expenses. So one thing there hasn't really been much for rumblings, but the skepticism would be that if Democrats took control, that they might have a transaction tax on investments for all securities. So just trying to raise awareness around that. So FPA opposes that because ultimately it gets passed on to the shareholders. So yeah, those are a couple of the ones, but usually there's like 5 or 6 federal ones that we have stances on.
What's a transaction tax?
Could be like buying and selling. I don't know exactly what it would look like, to be honest, but it would, I guess the best analogy I could give would be like almost like a sales tax when you go and buy and sell something.
So is FPA for that or against it?
Against that.
Because
the investors have to pay it at the end of the day. Ultimately gets passed to the investor. So, it's just a headwind to returns. And yeah, headwind to returns, which then you have to have, social programs to help people if they're not able to take care of themselves. That would be, I don't know if Joe Kalachi would endorse all of my comments. That's who the FPA national is, but who's the advocacy director. But hopefully I'm kind of close.
I think you're doing great. I'm just nodding my head yes. I think the fiduciary issue is the other big one I keep hearing about, if they potentially try and put back some more fiduciary language.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like maybe Dan was ready too. I think he unmuted. That's a sign, right?
That's a sign. Yeah, I had to talk about the Big Ten a little bit, so I figured another Big Ten fan myself. Not an Ohio State or Michigan fan, so we're good there. So,
where are you from, Dan?
I'm from Michigan. I'm a Michigan State guy. So.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. But no, a question was more about, the federal advocacy versus the state stuff. I'm curious, is there a lot of state level things that we're focused in on, or are there much? I guess I don't have my head or pulse on really some of the state level stuff. I haven't paid close attention. Yeah.
So there actually is. And I gotta be honest, I look to, like Joe Kalachi to know like what issues are state, what are federal. But like this last session, there was a bill brought by, is it the NAIC? Was that, or that brought a bill forward to effectively do to annuity transactions, what Reg BI did to, what Reg BI does. So changing, saying that someone that's selling an annuity is obligated to act in the best interest of their client, and then just very vague terms. So we actively opposed that, saying that we think that it should be a fiduciary standard, and the opposition said, well, we could just have the stance that we could just have the same standard as before. Would you say that this best interest is better than what the standard is now? Wouldn't you agree that? And we said, no, actually, we think the standard before is better, because the standard now, you're saying we're trying to dress we've got Little Red Riding Hood, dressed up like the wolf. And Melissa came up with the probably the best one there of saying, well, you can just hear someone now saying, well, the state of Arizona obligates me to act in your best interest on this transaction.
Mm-hmm.
Not a fiduciary though. So that's like an example of one that occurred just this past year.
And where does that stand right now in terms of Arizona?
Unfortunately, that one, even though our opposition, that one passed.
Okay.
But that would be, so like looking at this upcoming session, that'll be something that we'll see if we can get, if we can modify that. So like, and the timing on that stuff, like that was the thing that we learned the most during doing these, like the advocacy workshop, was like how a bill actually becomes a law, you know, like
Sure.
what's the timing on this stuff? Like, I understand that people vote on a bill and whatever, but like when's it appropriate to bring a bill or to bring an idea? Do I need to bring that idea to you in January? Do I need to bring it to you in October? Do I need to bring it to you at the end of the session? So what we learned is that like October, November, like that's a really good time. If you have an idea that you want to, that you think makes good legislation, then that's a great time to bring it to policymakers, is October, November. And then you know, you kind of bring the idea, and then usually they'd have like someone on their staff would kind of draft the legislation, make sure that it coincided with the Arizona statutes, so that way it's ready to be presented in January when session begins. So we'll be learning on that one, because we have not taken, you know, we haven't really asked for a modification really on existing legislation, but first we have to find somebody that, you know, a policymaker that's going to take the same stance as us on that.
Sure. Interesting. Okay.
I think we're working on that one, Dan. So it's a hot potato that we're not letting go of.
Yeah,
So
good. I was curious. Yeah.
And then the year prior, just as far as like actual legislation, that was, so 2019 was, we brought model bill legislation forth to have, that was passed into law. So that was the protection of vulnerable adults, financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. So that was a state issue. And actually this is the part where I don't understand where they mix or not, because right now there's pending in the Senate federally a vulnerable adult protection bill. So I'm not 100% sure, Dan, where one ends and one begins.
Sure. How does that relate to kind of the regulators versus the, you know, legislation and the advocacy, in terms of, do we have ties in with the regulators in the state of Arizona through the Corporate Commission, or is that just completely off target? I'm just curious, being new to this part of it. Yeah.
So we have so last year when we did our advocacy workshop, we invited I forget his name, Melissa.
Bob Burns.
Who, remind me his title also.
He's the chair of the Arizona Corporation Commissioner Board or whatever.
So
the board.
Almost the question you asked, Dan, is kind of how we framed the question too, of like, what should we be doing?
Right.
Which I think they kind of appreciate a little, of just like, I do think that we have kind of some street cred a little, of like, we're not you know, lobbyists. So like, we're in the trenches. We're the people doing the work. This legislation that you're bringing up, or this regulation you're proposing, this doesn't affect my people. This affects me. This affects my clients, you know? So that doesn't really answer your question, Dan, but as far as what we're doing, but we're asking the question.
No, but you sat down with them. It's interesting. No, just curious. I just didn't know how that, you know, how open our regulators were. And, you know, I hear some colleagues that I've, you know, talking to in other states, and, you know, regulators are all over the board in terms of individual states. Right. And so
we've had really easy access to people.
Yeah.
Here, I feel like,
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, relatively easy access. I don't feel like anyone's, I don't know, some people I think that get into politics, the only reason they do it is so that you can call them senator. And I think there are some of those people also. But our experience has been, I think generally, most of our policymakers, regulators have been responsive to us, and have, again, generally had a pretty open door.
Okay.
if I can put in a plug for the August 26th chapter event, it's a CE event, so we are getting it qualified as a continuing education event, but it is conversations with our regulators. And Craig Waugh has been working super hard to get people from the Arizona Corporation Commission, the SEC, FINRA, the Department of Insurance to be a part of the panel and to participate in a discussion. So he's doing a lot of the pre-work to get them lined up, to tell them the boundaries of the topics and to set up, you know, as interactive a conversation with our regulators as possible. But this stemmed out of Matt's work with advocacy and his team, where we want to get in front of our regulators on a regular basis in a way that allows you all to build relationships or at least know their names and who they are. And apparently, Matt, because of our positions in the last few years, when they realize we're serious, they're willing to come as long as they know what we're going to talk about. So they know we're serious. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
So I don't know, Aaron, how are we doing on time?
Pretty good here. I want to see if we had any kind of final questions that were more on topic with advocacy and what we discussed so far. Otherwise, we'll kind of mix it up here and we'll, you know, transition to some more kind of fun off the wall questions here from Matt. Keep him on his toes.
Hey, Matt Benson. Good
to William.
You, hey, you know, I'm really interested to see what you're hearing through advocacy channels about FPA's sort of seismic shift from federal advocacy to state level advocacy, at least conceptually, and where that stands. I mean, if you're actually hearing or seeing anything new or different there, or, I mean, we're obviously living in a different world and a lot of things is put on hold, but I'm just curious if, you know, through your connections on the advocacy side of things, you've heard anything new or different there.
No, I wouldn't be able to give you an intelligent response on that, probably.
Okay.
Sorry.
Melissa, anything new that you've heard since we last talked?
Not new. When I saw and heard the advocacy powers that be nationally look at what was possible at the state level, it spoke to me about the effectiveness of this grassroots effort and our team and what we're doing to come together. You know, pushing the needle as FPA at the federal level has been a little frustrating. You know, we've had to work with the DOL rule and the SEC, and we've had to partner with like NAPFA and CFP board and all these other entities. But at the state level, like we can go knock on the door and it's us, it's just us. So we're not having to build coalitions in order to speak. And because we're there and we're earnest, and I think because we're really authentically trying to do this right, we're getting heard and we're getting things done. So, you know, if this is where we can move the needle, I think I get why National said, okay, let's put more emphasis on the state.
Good.
I have a question.
Yeah, well, I mean, it probably doesn't really answer your question, William, but maybe just further support of moving to state is, you know, a lot of those federal issues, it's like, even though there can be bipartisan support, it gets rolled up into this massive bill where it's like they're not even voting on the issue that, you know, your issue doesn't even matter in there. Just thrown in with a bunch of other things. So that definitely makes it challenging, because you're not really, you know, it's challenging to advocate for a single position when there's several different things in one bill.
I was just curious. It's one of the things that's come up as a topic with the advisory council. So I was curious what everybody else was hearing. So
that must be where the sausage metaphor came from.
The sausage.
Diego,
Diego. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. By the way, first ever FPA meeting for me, so thanks for having me on.
Welcome.
Shout out to Melissa and Aaron. Anyway, so no, great discussion, Matt. I'm curious to hear, and this is sort of tied to the state versus federal, policy conversation, just around financial literacy and education. Right now only about less than half of the states, require some sort of financial literacy or education course, at least at the high school level, right? I'm curious to hear, whether or not FPA is involved in some of those conversations, both at the federal and maybe state level. If there's any changes, right, that are maybe potentially coming with any policy introductions out there.
Yeah. So sorry, Dan, I lied when I said that there was only like one issue that we talked about in 2020. Sorry, that was the only controversial one that we took on in 2020. So our relationship with Treasurer Kimberly Yee has been unbelievable. She has, so when she first became treasurer, she was a senator previous, but we knew her as a senator. And then when she became treasurer, she was willing to meet with us, and she's been more proactive than probably any state, I think, period, any state on financial literacy. So she brought forward, I think, was it 4? Yeah, 4 different bills around financial literacy in 2020 that FPA of Greater Phoenix, our board voted on to support. So they were all bipartisan support, I believe, right, Melissa? So, those are not the kind of things that make good headlines when everyone agrees on stuff.
Yeah.
But
they were bipartisan, but there was opposition. So they were very grateful that we were willing to take a position in support, because there did emerge some opposition.
Who was in opposition? Like what kind of parties?
Well,
I don't mean political
about
parties, but what kind of people, right?
Yeah, no, some of them were our members, or used to be members. That got interesting.
Members of the FPA?
So the 529 plan was under a separate commission under the governor's office. And it felt like it wasn't getting as much marketing and as much investment and emphasis as it could get under the treasurer. Like, it was a great program housed in the wrong place. And so everybody in the governor's office agreed to move it under the treasurer and under their board of investment, and give the treasurer the ability to allocate funds to start marketing it, so that the Arizona 529 plan might become more competitive, lower fees, better returns, more options when compared to the Utah or the Fidelity or some of these other 529 plans. And so we could get more Arizonans choosing to use our plan, and more financial advisors in Arizona, feeling good about advocating for it. So that all made sense. But when it actually bubbled up and became for a vote, what you found is that people who were serving on the commission were going to lose their job, and the woman who was employed to be the executive director was probably not going to be able to keep that position. So that's where the opposition bubbled up, is people who had been involved didn't want it to go away.
Oh, it's the commission that was managing the 529? I see.
Yeah.
Not surprising.
It happened.
Yeah, and then I can't remember the details of the financial literacy piece as it relates to education in the schools. I don't know if you remember the details of that one, Melissa, but yeah, there was a piece that was modifying curriculum or something, I think, in there too. But yes, so yeah, I mean, yeah, FPA is certainly one of the, on the state pieces, increasing financial literacy. Sorry, federal as well. That's a mutually beneficial thing to talk about. It benefits our industry. It benefits constituents. So yes, that is, and Treasurer Yee has been, one of the most, she's spoke up a lot about financial literacy. So what we've learned a little on that is that she probably will have bills that she'll want to bring forward that are in line with what FPA stance is. So what we learned from this past advocacy year was that we should meet with her first, so that we know what bills are in the chamber, so that we can speak in support of those when we go meet with policymakers.
Yeah, another quick plug, Diego and Dan and anybody who wants to help out. Michael Fisher just texted me. He couldn't get on the call, but he's our pro bono director. And we're rolling out a course, a financial literacy course produced by a C3 in New York called WISE, W!SE. And it's a 12-week financial literacy course that when you take it, you have an exam at the end that you need to pass. And if you pass the exam, you are certified basically financially literate. I don't remember what they call it, but there's some street cred to it and there's some meat to it. And if you're taking it and you graduate, you know, now, wow, I'm more financially literate. And so we are producing that course for the first time in Arizona with the YWCA, and we need some volunteer financial planners to be instructors and learn the course. The treasurer is watching us do this because one of the bills is funding for extending more financial literacy to veterans and to K-12 education classrooms across the state. And then another bill gave credit if you are on federal support, SNAP program or the WIC program or some of those others. You have a work requirement to continue gaining funds. Well, they can now take this course and pass the course and become more financially self-sufficient or literate. And that counts toward them remaining on federal support until they get on their feet again. So the treasurer's office may look to this chapter to recruit more financial planners who are capable of putting this course in classrooms, on bases, and in social support systems across the state. So it's like Ron Burgundy, it's kind of a big deal. So we need to launch it well right now. So, and this is all because of the advocacy. So it all kind of blends together.
Wow. Melissa, looks like you have a bookshelf of rich mahogany behind you as well. So nice touch there on Burgundy.
Well, Melissa, follow-up question on that. Are you, obviously you're looking for advisors to volunteer, but are you also looking for other nonprofits and entities to expand the programming into after you go through this pilot run with the Y?
Yes, another one of our working teams is called Professional Relations, and their job is to look at other nonprofits in the state who are able to help us leverage our mission or where we can help them leverage theirs through financial literacy. So if there are other obvious social service agencies that want to extend this course, then that committee would just sort of set up an MOU. The board would agree that we have the ability to help each other. We would bless an agreement and then, you know, make sure we cover liability costs or whatever. We'd figure out how to extend what we're doing into their services. So yes.
That's a great question, Lisa. I'm actually on the board, Melissa, for Junior Achievement, Greater Arizona as well, or Central Arizona, I should say. Yeah, so yeah, I think there's definitely potential there to partner with the organization as well.
Cool.
Absolutely. We do a lot with Junior Achievement. We've been ready to help provide volunteers at least once, if not twice a year, to some of their existing programs. So where this would be different, Diego, is Junior Achievement typically offers their own course. It's their curriculum. It's in, you know, so this would be not their curriculum, and that would be a change for them. But that's where those conversations start, you know, so yeah.
More the merrier, right?
If it helps people gain literacy, I'm all for it.
Right.
Yeah. I'm passing it back to you guys. I just wanted to share how what we're doing in advocacy, it shows up in pro bono, it shows up in professional relations, it shows up in the boardroom, it shows up everywhere. So this is critical stuff.
Perfect. Well, it sounds like we have plenty of opportunities for conversation for future community, you know, chapter calls here as well with pro bono and other parts of the FPA. Any final questions here that are kind of more on topic before we mix it up here a little bit for Matt? Okay, perfect. So we did this last time and we had a lot of fun with it, and we'll eventually kind of, you know, change gears a little bit, but I'm not sure if anyone has seen Jimmy Fallon does a little skit where it's not two truths and a lie, but a truth and a lie. And Matt sent me 2 emails here on 2 different things that, you know, one could be truth and one could be a lie. And what we'll do is we'll give him a minute just to kind of describe the situation. And then feel free to unmute your lines and we can kind of just grill him for a solid minute, minute and a half. And then we have to all kind of give a thumbs up or down, either literally on your camera or with your little, Zoom thumbs up or down, whether or not it's a truth or a lie here. So we'll assume this is the truth and this is, not so true. So I'm going to go ahead and open up that email here now. So Matt let me know that he was once involved in a police chase while on a police ride-along. So Matt, I'll let you kind of describe that, story a little bit in more detail if you wanted to, and then we'll open it up for any questions here on that.
Yeah. So a friend of mine is a police officer in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was in town a couple of years ago, and it was in December. I was actually on my birthday, December 22nd. And we were over at his apartment, and I was like, dude, what do I got to do a ride along with you? He's like, just that. You just got to ask. I was like, perfect. Well, could I do a ride along with you today? He's like, well, sure. Yeah. I mean, my shift doesn't start till 6 p.m. He's like, it probably, if you wanted to go along and see exciting stuff, you'd probably want to show up. I don't know. We could do a ride along from like 11 at night until, 4 or 5 in the morning. It was a Saturday. And, but it was during Christmas break. Lincoln's a college town. So it was like, whatever. Anyway, so it was like relatively uneventful until about like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're driving through a part of town that's just like, it's all college housing. So like normally on a weekend when school's in session, there'd be a bunch of parties and stuff. But it was just like crickets. And we encountered a car head on in the alley. Or at an intersection of an alley, and they had one headlight out, and in the alley, 3 o'clock in the morning, one headlight out. It's like, okay, like, this could be we had a reason to pull him over. So they pulled out and he flipped on his lights, and then they took off down another alley, and then they threw the car in park, and then they took off out of, there's 3 people in the car. The driver went one way and the passengers went the other way. And we didn't talk about that, what to do if that were to occur. So my buddy went and chased the driver, and then I grabbed the radio and I radioed, which I was told not to touch the radio, but I did in this situation. And yeah, that was what happened. So then everyone that ran, we caught him. So.
What'd you do? Did you call for backup? What did you say on the radio?
So I grabbed the radio and I said, hey, I can't remember what his call number was, but I said, like, whatever his car number was, I said 347 ride along. We've got a suspect heading whatever direction it was, and then there was like another police officer not far away that intercepted him. Yeah.
Did you tackle anyone?
No, but my buddy tackled the driver. So he caught the driver. It was snow on the ground, so they both came back with snow on each other.
Why did they run? Did they have something in the car?
So they were drinking. They had like a huge list of things. It was like the driver had a warrant out for his arrest. Missing headlight, driving without insurance, DUI. It was like 6 or 7 different things.
So did you use your radio voice seriously when you did that? You sounded like a pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my recollection was, that I kind of did a radio voice.
Was he driving a Crown Vic, or was it like a Ford Explorer or something?
No, it's actually they didn't make the models for very long. It was a Ford Taurus, like the newer looking, the big Ford Taurus. There's not very many cop cars that are like that, but yeah, there's a Ford Taurus.
What's your friend's name?
Scott.
That's a good cop name.
Does he have
a mustache?
No mustache.
Okay.
Did you have to sign any liability releases before you went, or it was just that simple where you just jump in the car?
No, that's the way it works in Lincoln, Nebraska. You just jump in the car.
All right, I think we gave him enough questions here. What do you guys think? You think the story holds up?
I'm going, yeah.
Sounds like something Benson
It's
would
very
get.
specific.
Yeah, that's
Holds up. Put a
yeah.
lot of
Sorry,
thought
that was
into it.
some of those details were too detailed. There's no way that could have been a lie. Yeah, that's true.
It just sounds like something you'd find yourself involved in, honestly. I can see it happening.
If you had said that you had tackled one guy, you know, and then you pulled a, you know, baggie of Coke out of his pocket and held it up for the flashlight, you know, maybe I would have said no. You only broke one law.
Yeah, right. Only broke one lie, exactly.
Oh, that's the radio.
That was a good one. That's a lot of fun.
Glad to hear that ride along wasn't totally uneventful.
Yeah. Well, that's what he told me. He said, dude, it's like he had a friend of his was considering being a police officer, and he's like, well, I think I want to, you know, go do a ride along, see what it's like. And it was just like crickets, like just nothing happened and nothing eventful, you know. And he's like, dude, still to this day, that was the most eventful ride along that I've ever had. You know, that's like the most exciting, like that is the most, you know, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but the most eventful evening that we had was you riding along with me.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my mind when you said the guy with the one headlight and he's got warrants out for his arrest. I'm like thinking, you know, if you got tickets and a warrant out for your arrest, don't you just go to the auto shop store and get a new headlight? Like, the most obvious thing you're going to get pulled over for is a burnt out headlight or tail light, right?
Colleen, you're not a criminal. You're
not very smart.
You're using logic.
So are we, Colleen is going to do the next conversation. I don't know, do you have a promo in your write-up, Aaron, for how you do these to the next conversation?
I don't think we've discussed too much as far as the you know, the pre-call setup here. We usually, you know, do that a week or two out, so we'll have to get together here shortly. But I'll let Colleen take it away if she's got anything, you know, a quick 30-second ad here for the next one.
Well, I think the conversation is supposed to be about what we're going to be doing at the Colby workshop, I guess, right? Just to
exactly.
Actually had a conversation about that. So, yeah. So, real quickly, how many of you have taken Colby? Just raise your hand if you've taken it. Okay, so there's like 4 of you that haven't. It's very different from other assessments. It's not personality, it's not skill, it's not, you know, preferences or values, or it's a natural, instinctive way of how you go about things. Like, for example, you know, there are people who they see it in children, like preschool children, you know, like you got the kid that he can't start the homework assignment until he's asked like 20 more questions before getting started. And while he's asking all the questions, there's another kid that's like halfway done with the assignment already, you know, just going for it, not sure if he's doing it right, he's just plowing forward. And, you know, these are kind of two, like, you know, really highly extreme sort of the Colby. You know, one's a really high fact finder, you know, they're just not comfortable until they've got all the facts. You know, it's really easy for me to answer the question when somebody asks me to just make an intelligent guess about something. I'm like, oh yeah, well, you know, I'll do a couple calculations in my head and I'll just say, yeah, so it's probably about X, Y, Z. You know, that's probably about a 70% chance of being right. My husband's just one number higher than me on fact finder, and that's just not, he's not going to go there, right? He's going to ask a bunch of questions so that his estimate is contextually correct, you know? So it's kind of interesting when you, even just in your marriage or in your, you know, your relationships, never mind, you know, the people that you work with and spend most of your day with, it's understanding why somebody does that. You know, why does this person ask so many questions, you know, like, or why does this person go off and just do things without asking any questions? You know, what's wrong with her? You know, so it's it's important to understand that when you have like those two people together working on a project, they're unstoppable, right? You've got the person who's like got that, you know, gumption to go and move, and you got the other person who's like, let's make sure we get this right, you know, and you get that kind of combination, and you know, that's a fabulous combination. There's also the, you know, there's the follow-through person, the person who's really all about process, and you always have to have those people, and boy, it's nice to have them, especially in, you know, when you're an entrepreneur, for those of you running your own business. So the workshop is going to be for people who have taken the Kolbe and are welcome to bring their team members. We're providing the test at a discount at cost. Actually, the wholesale cost is $44 to take it. And in the workshop, we're going to learn how to apply your Kolbe scores. Like, what does that mean? You know, how do you plan your day because of what your Kolbe score is? You know, how do you, you know, for some people, you got to get certain things done like right at the beginning of the day when you have the most energy, and other things you can leave for the end of the day that you have a lot more energy for, because it's all about energy management. If you're doing something like, for me, to spend a lot of time asking a lot of detailed questions and digging into something, I just want to kill myself, you know, after like an hour, because I can't, you know, I can't stay in it. So it's important for me to understand, okay, that's going to take all the energy out of me, and I won't have anything left to do anything else. So I'm going to have to find the right time to do that kind of thing, because I have to do it for certain things, especially if you're a financial advisor, right? So, so that's what the workshop will be, is getting to know your own Kolbe and how you can apply it so that you can be your most productive self and manage your energy properly. And if you come with a teammate or a strategic partner, or even a spouse, you'll learn how the two of you can put your 2, 3, 4, if you know, there's 4 packs which are going to be available for bigger discounts, and you can learn how you can be more productive as a team. You've heard the, you know, 1 + 1 = 3. Well, I say it's 1 + 1 = 10, because it really compounds when each person is getting to operate at their absolute best, and then you put them together. Now you have just this explosion of potential energy for accomplishment and progress. So that's the Kolbe workshop.
That's a lot.
Cool.
So the next
We'll
conversation will go into that a little bit, right? Your next interview is with Colleen. You'll dive a little more, you know, your whole 45 minutes or hour will be about that. And then if people are interested, they'll work into the workshop. So, and you get to meet where she's from and what she's done. Yeah. Cool. I think we're over time, but I just want to make sure I give you the room to close us up and give us any closing words, Aaron, because you're the host and I'm going to be quiet.
Perfect. Well, just a quick thank you to everyone joining us here. Hopefully you appreciate the conversation that we had today with Matt, and I definitely appreciate all the questions, and I'm sure Matt does also. It's, you know, plenty of opportunity to be had when it comes to advocacy, and you know, staying involved, and even if it's with a different part of the FPA organization, feel free to reach out to any one of us. You know, we're always available to answer questions, and you know, if you want to get plugged directly into advocacy, reach out to Matt. If you want to just kind of find out where to go within FPA, feel free to reach out to Melissa as well. She's happy to point you in the right direction there. So with that being said, I appreciate everyone kind of joining us here for this happy hour time conversation. Next time we'll maybe bring in a beer or two for the conversation, but thanks for joining us. A happy Wednesday to you. Stay cool and stay healthy as well.
Great job, Matt.
Right,
great job, Aaron.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
you.
Good to see everybody.
Good to meet you, Diego.
Great to meet everyone as well.
Virginia, you were so quiet. Next time,
Okay.
we catch up with you.
All right, bye, guys.